You are listening to Nerd Best Friends, a podcast that covers the nerdy conversations you're already having, or wish you could. It's the nerdiest thing you'll do this week.
This is Analese.
This is Rob.
And we are your nerd best friends.
Thank you for listening and coming back for another episode.
Get ready to dive into the ultimate geeky goodness with Nerd Best Friends, available on all your favorite podcast platforms. Your support keeps our nerdy hearts beating, so smash that subscribe or follow button on every device you own. Want to go even further? Join our Patreon family or drop us a one-time donation on Venmo. Let's geek out together. Welcome back, nerds. We hope you've had an amazing nerdy summer. This is season 4, episode 55, and we begin this season talking about our summer nerd travels and adventures. In particular, we had an amazing first-time experience at HellmouthCon, an event all about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, hosted by and for fans of the series. But first, we've got some nerd mail.
Nerd mail. All right, what do we got for nerd mail this episode, Annalise?
You know, post our meeting with intern Joan and setting up the season, she has been on it. She has found a story from us out of Portland and a gamer who goes to ground control, and he is attempting to break the world record for Donkey Kong.
First, yes, Dr. Intern Joan is the best thing that's ever happened to this show. I'm so glad she turned out to be a real person. Second, how do you break the world record for Donkey Kong? Are we talking speed? Are we talking points?
We're talking points.
Okay, so isn't there like a finite amount of points you can get?
I guess
if you
not.
Jump over every barrel and you defeat Donkey Kong in every level, doesn't it max out?
Aren't there some things that you can and can't do to get more points? Yeah, you got to get to the top at each level and like do the thing to move on to the next level. But there are extra points you can get. Like, I think it's like a completion thing. You have to go after every single point that's possibly available in every single level and not die and lose the game to continue to the next level and do the same thing for every level.
But I still think there's only a certain amount of points you can get. And so are we saying that that's never been done before? No one's ever gotten all the points?
Or maybe...
Call your brother. Call Carlos right now.
Let's see what he has to say.
No. That's very interesting, but I have questions. I guess we're not getting the whole story here. Or could it be speed? Because speed running is an absolute thing. Like, you can watch people beat the original Super Mario Brothers in like a minute and a half or something. It's wild.
So the current record holder is Robbie Lakeman, who achieved a score of 1,272,800 in 2021. So it seems like you can actually...
It's points.
Yes, you can actually get more points on that. And this guy in Portland at Ground Control, which is a wonderful, wonderful barcade I've visited in Portland. He's going in there and spending his swipe card on trying to break that record.
Okay, well, best of luck. And thank you, Dr. Intern Joan.
On to our new segment, Talk Nerdy to Me. Rob, talk nerdy to me. Breaking, aka breakdancing, in the Olympics. Not since Breaking 2 Electric Boogaloo has there been more exciting content on television screens. It was wild.
I love the Break Into Electric Boogaloo reference. I use it in everything that comes
that
up
you do
that is any kind of sequel or a part 2. I always go with Electric Boogaloo.
Boogaloo.
We got to save these rec centers. I've got questions. I told you last week we were talking and we said, hey, breakdancing is coming in the Olympics. You got to watch it. I was ready for it. We've had the Olympics on every night, but somehow I missed the breakdancing segment that came out. All I know about breaking in the Olympics is all of these memes of people making fun of this poor Australian woman who came out and decided that she was popping and locking good enough to be on the world stage, and just the outburst of creativity in order to make fun of this poor person and the country of Australia. So how does one breakdance in the Olympics?
Okay, here's the thing. On the really serious side, because you're right, there's a lot of chatter right now as of the date that we're recording. There's a lot of chatter about whether or not breaking belongs in the Olympics? Is it sporty? Like there's all these, and then of course the funny memes of that one particular contestant from Australia.
Well, I had heard already, even before they did the competition, the host guy from So You Think You Could Dance was doing an interview talking about how it's already not renewed for the Los Angeles Olympics next year.
So I don't think that's an Olympic committee. What it sounds like to me when I was watching the break-in competition on these Olympics is that it's actually a site. Do they have the capacity to host it? And I think LA does not have the capacity to hold it because LA has hosted a few Olympics over the century, right? I don't think they're building anything new for the 2028 Summer Olympics. I think they're just renovating the stuff on UCLA's campus, USC's campus, at the Coliseum, at the new place where the Rams play. Like they're just
Stadium.
They're just updating venues rather than creating a venue, which some of the other sites had the ability to create. Like this was a very particular venue creation, and I will tell you, it was sold out. It was packed, right? But there was nothing else that you could have in this arena. But
okay, so let's get to the brass tacks of it because I'm learning from you because unfortunately I missed it. So when I did see the highlights, it looks like they're on like a circular stage. It doesn't look different from the wrestling ring. That's the circle with the stripes on it. So like if you go out of bounds, do you lose points? Like how does this
there's no boundaries. So I actually learned a lot. I'm going to give I don't know if we give a shout out to a network, but the Peacock app, the NBC Peacock app actually had a little vignette to watch about how the scoring works. And here's what blew my mind.
Okay.
Break-in, it's something that it's one of the very few art forms that was actually created in the United States. It comes from the same place that your favorite superhero comes from, Brooklyn. Spider-Man and Break-in both come from Brooklyn. It was created there. And
listeners, I know Spider-Man comes from Queens, but we're just going to let her have
Spider-Man doesn't. I've said Brooklyn this whole time.
Miles Morales Spider-Man is from Brooklyn. Peter Parker is from Queens.
That's what I'm thinking. My favorite Spider-Man, Miles Morales, came from Brooklyn. My bad. But it was originated in Brooklyn in the 70s, and the height of its popularity in the 80s when Break-in and Break-in 2 came out, the battles, the one-on-one dance battle scenes is really what the competition is based on. There are world competitions. Red Bull sponsors Break-in and has for years and years and years and years. So all of the folks that qualified for the Olympics were like, this is the African world champion. This is the or African countries champion. And this is world champion from 2022. And this is these are legit people who've been doing this as an art form and competing it on stages just like this. There are 4 things that they look for. It's head to head and it's freestyle, where the dancers don't know what song comes on. So they've got to be able to perform based on what's on there. And so they have what they call top rock, which is movements you do while you're upright.
Okay.
They've got bottom rock, which is movements you do when you're, down on the ground. There is musicality. So they have to adapt to the music that's being played, and they get more points for their
they don't bring in their routine?
No, they don't know the song being played.
Snaps. It's like equestrian.
A little bit. Yeah. And then the fourth one is freezing. So when you see them doing something crazy and they freeze, they get points for that picture. Right on the onset, this is actually really very sporty. I see it like gymnastics because they're doing flips and all kinds of things with their feet and hands like a gymnast does. It's like the rhythmic gymnastics with the ribbons, but they just don't have ribbons. It's like synchronized swimming.
Yep.
All of those other sports. Can you imagine gymnastics going to their floor routine and then a random song comes on and they've got to create a routine on the fly? That's what this is.
And that speaks to like the origins of it, right? You'd go to the club and then you try to be, impressive and that kind of thing.
Yes.
How interesting.
And then the scoring is even more interesting because a gymnast who does a floor routine, they have their points and their rubric, and this is how they're scored and blah, blah, blah. And then they compare the scores. You're going head to head with someone in break-in competition, and it's a sliding scale. On this part, you're doing better than your opponent. On this part, you're doing better on they slide the scale based on who's performing better in that moment comparative to each other. And they're watching this.
They can see it, so they're adjusting
No, they reveal it at the end, and you have 3 rounds, and whoever wins the majority of the course of 3 rounds moves on to the next level. It's
wild. Okay.
It's wild.
So okay, so there's top rock and there's bottom rock, which is the one that, I remember from when I
All
was a
the
kid. It was like,
flips and
you got to
spins
spin on your back and you got to
Yeah.
turn it into a headstand and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And now, so when you're watching it, is it very 80s? Is it very like classic breaking, or are we like crumping and popping and locking in some of these like more modern versions of it? Or is it all very classical 80s, 90s breakdancing, do you think?
There's actually very little, from what my uninformed eye saw, very little of what we know as popping and locking, and a lot more of what we know as the acrobatic part, like the bottom rock. But yet, think about, since the 80s, think about the 30, 40 years of athleticism. They're like on one hand flipping around, or on their head spinning, or their moves are so minute that listening to the commentators who were like breaking people, they know the genre, they know the sport, and they're explaining what they're seeing, and then they show it in slow motion, and the stuff these people are doing is actually really, really phenomenal. It's more like what we remember of the 80s, but way more athletic, way more than you could possibly imagine being done with a human body. Like, they're spinning on their shoulders, on the sides of their head, they're sliding on their body and then ending up upside down, and some aerials, and like, it's pretty crazy. The really crazy thing about it is they get knocked down for repeating moves. So if you have a signature move, you can only bust it out once, and you've got to pick the right time.
On that crutch or whatever. Okay.
Nope. So there was one who I thought, like, watching it in the semifinals on the men's side, I thought this guy has it down pat. He totally was way better than the other guy. He didn't move on to the gold medal round, and the announcer, the commentator, was like, there were so many repeats in what he was doing. Here's this move, he did it again here, he did it again here, so he lost points versus his competitor on repeats. So it's a whole genre. It's been going on forever. I'm surprised it took this long to get to the Olympics, and also it was kind of awkward.
Okay, well, the awkwardness aside, the first question I had is it successful because it's a performing art? And we both have grown up in like performing arts competition world, and that doesn't always translate to people being able to watch it. Like, when you see gymnastics or when you see diving, it's like it's choreographed and it's built to highlight certain moves and stuff, but it's the same every time, right? Like, they practiced it perfectly, and it's all about the execution of if they did it, which I already kind of find difficult to follow, right? Like gymnastics or like diving and stuff. It's like, well, that looked cool to me, but you have to really be in it to understand it.
Right.
Is that the kind of the same thing here? Do you think it's going to be popular, or is it too hard to like, wait, why are they trying to put points on, jamming?
But the funny thing is that the Olympics didn't create this measurement, this scoring tool. This is how the scoring has been going in all these troops and groups and worldwide phenomenon that breaking has been since the 80s. So they didn't invent this to put it into the Olympics. They recognize that there's a community out there and there's a demographic out there that this is their thing. I think where the mainstream will struggle, and they always struggle, is marching band a sport? Is cheerleading a sport? And you'll have people who say absolutely not.
Cheerleading competitions are huge, but I don't know if they're worldwide.
They're not.
Yeah, and I think marching band's the same way, right? Like, we're a very marching band is a very particular, like, this happens at halftime shows during American football. Like, it's not a worldwide kind of thing.
It's not even countrywide. If you start thinking about, DCI and the upper echelon of marching band in our country, it's not even mainstream popular in our country. You have to know about it to know about it. And I think that's where breaking's going to struggle, is people like, this is not a sport. This is art. And you and I know better. It's a sport. Marching band's a sport. It also is art. And that crisscross is tough for people.
So there's going to be a lot of opinions about breakdancing the Olympics, and I bet we've got listeners that know a lot more about breakdancing, have breakdance on like their bingo card of what I'm nerdy about. Breakdancing might be one of them. Let's continue to encourage people to share.
Yes.
Let us know what your thoughts on breaking in the Olympics was, and probably by next episode I will have seen some of them, so I can relay more of my hot takes whenever I get them.
Not only that, listeners, send us your deep thoughts, your nerd questions, or any subject you'd like to hear on Talk Nerdy to Me. Slide into our DMs or send those topics to podcast@nerdbestfriends.com. On to the topic of our episode this week, Rob. We are talking about our nerd travels for this summer, and specifically meaning our trip to the Hellmouth, Torrance, California for HellmouthCon. Listeners, if you don't know what the Hellmouth is, number one, you're wrong. Number two, go back to season 1, listen to our Buffy episode. If you know anything about me and sort of Rob, who's more of an Angel fan, Buffy the Vampire Slayer is very important to me. We've talked about it a number of times, and we even hinted in our summer episodes about this trip to HellmouthCon, but we are in it. We're going to talk about it today. I'm very excited to bring to the show Frank Bonacci, who I met at HellmouthCon. How are you doing today, Frank?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on.
We're so excited to have you here, and we loosely met at HellmouthCon, although I'm going to say, before we talk about the things, after I met you and talked to you at San Diego Comic-Con, I realized, oh, that was the dude on the stage at the trivia night. Oh, that was the dude who was flipping out while we were in line for the Bad Girls of Buffy photo shoot, because I remembered your Hawaiian shirt that day.
I don't remember meeting you because I was kind of on stage. Like, it was funny. I do, like, after you sent the email, I vaguely remember. I had to look through the footage because I had gotten on stage to introduce our show, which is not a thing I do every day. I described it to Juliet and to Chris. I felt like I was concussed. Like, you know, when you're just not fully aware of your surroundings. And I vaguely remember somebody handing me something, which was you. And so you said in the email, oh, I handed you my card. I'm like, that's who that was. And that's what it was. You could have handed me a gun. I don't remember what was happening.
I imagine it was a pretty out of body experience. What Frank is alluding to, Rob, is the announcement of the Slaying It podcast with Juliet Landau, which happened, we'll talk about it in a little bit, but it did happen after one of the panels that was at HellmouthCon. But the funny thing for me, Frank, just so you know, is before Slaying It had its lead up episodes aired, where I listened and realized and kind of pinpointed where you were. I think we arrived about the same time, because I remember seeing you outside of the front. We were walking away as you were walking up to the front of the school. And then you put out a video, I think on your Instagram. And I'm like, hey, there's me and my friends in the background. So we were right there at the same time.
Oh, wow.
They were taking a picture of me on the staircase. Well, you were like, look, it's the courtyard. It's the quad of the school. And I'm up on the staircase.
Wow, yeah, it was such a fun event, because now that was your first time there?
It was my first time, and that gets us into the first thing we're talking about. By looking at Fandom Charity's website, it seems like HellmouthCon's been going on for a really long time.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
Okay.
But this is their first year at the Torrance High School.
At the high school, yeah.
Yeah, this is their first year. That's how it came on my radar.
It looks like it started maybe towards the 2010s, maybe 2007, 2006, somewhere around there is what I was able to kind of find, and definitely wasn't at the high school. And that was definitely a time before algorithms were a thing and AI detection was telling us things. Really, that's how I found HellmouthCon. It just popped up on my feed at Torrance High School. What is this? This must be brand new. And come to find out, it's not.
It sounds like the secret sauce was getting it at the high school and having those landmarks so that people could recognize it. I was at the trivia contest the night before, but I was up and down the coast that day with other things going on that weekend. Yeah, talk about the high school. You walk up and it looks just the same as it did in the show.
It's freaky. I filmed myself on driving up there because I knew I was going to be in for it. So the way I heard about it was Juliet, before we'd even discussed doing a show together, we were just talking idly. And she's like, oh, we're doing HellmouthCon. I'm like, right on. And she's like, yeah, we're doing it at Torrance High School. I'm like, that's genius.
What?
I said, do you want to come? And I don't want to leave the house. I'm a homebody. It's tough to get me out of the house. Unless it's official business. But when she said, hey, do you want to come to this? It's going to be at the high school, Sunnydale High. I said, well, when you put it that way, it's like, yes, I will go.
It's actually very visceral. And if you were a teen in the 90s and you watched movies and shows, this campus was used for a whole lot of things. The two biggest being Buffy and Beverly Hills 90210. But
Bring It On. And
Bring It On. She's all that.
No kidding.
I mean, it's so many pieces of this campus were used in the 90s in particular for high school settings. I had a little bit of a cheat code It wasn't as visceral for me because I went to college at USC and I had a friend who lived down the street from Torrance High School. I actually remember I was in the USC band, so she was in the band with us, and she brought to practice one day a letter that said, hey, on these days at about approximately 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, you're going to hear loud explosions at the high school. It's when they were filming the series or the season finale of season 3. So we were going to stay at her house and stalk and kind of like look down the street to see what we can see, but we didn't. So
that's Jean talked about that. They had a tour of Buffy's house, and the original owner, this lady Jean, who's in her 90s and very funny. She told that story about she got those flyers too, and how a lot of people in the area remember that.
Yes, it was. I mean, they went a certain radius around the neighborhood with those flyers door to door and gave it to everyone who lived there. Like, don't panic, this is on purpose.
World War II, when they would drop like warnings off out of planes, just like you gotta evacuate.
So I've seen the outside of the school and had that like, whoa, it looks exactly like you remember. Like the school's kept up beautifully, but they haven't made any major renovations to the exteriors of the building, including that iconic quad where so many shows were filmed. It's exactly the same, just really well kept.
Not only just in that place is in a time capsule, because we had a press room, and it was like a holding area. So again, I'm freaking out because I'm in the room with not just Juliet, but Julie Benz is there.
Of course.
Glory, everybody's there. And I'm standing there in a corner because I don't want to go up to anybody. I'll never go up to anybody. It's just, I'm terrified. I know Juliet. It's like, I won't go up to her because it's just like, well, talent's doing their thing. I don't want to bother them.
Right.
But they, in the decor, I took a picture of it. There's a poster above one of the blackboards, and it's just a call to reading, a call to literacy. And it's promo material from Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. And it has been there since, so what is that, 91 or 92? I can't remember.
Yeah.
It's like, so that's been up there since 91, which like, I want to steal it. I'm not going to lie.
Oh my gosh.
I did peek into a couple of classrooms too. I don't know if you know this, Frank. Well, you might have noticed if you remember my card. I handed you a sticker of our podcast with my card because I imagined sometime later when you dug back into your pocket, it says, why is this high school principal giving me their card? So I was hoping they'd stay together and have some relevant connection there. I'm a high school principal, so I am very geeky about facilities. So I was peeking into all the rooms that I could. And some of the interiors even actually still look like 90s, but it's a beautiful campus. They keep it up.
Stunning.
You can tell that stuff is old, but it doesn't look like they're about to fall apart, which I've definitely gone to campuses where you have interiors that look like they're from the 90s and look like students should probably not be in there.
I live in New York, so I'm sure, those just look like abandoned prisons, a lot of them. But they're in
New York schools are a different beast altogether.
Is this the high school? Is this the haunted tour? I don't know what this is.
My ex-wife is from the Midwest. She would tell me, like, I remember watching Buffy and watching this and all these high schools that go outdoors, and no high schools do that. And then I took her to where I grew up in Santa Barbara and said, look at the school. She goes, this is a high school? Because everything in the Midwest to east of the United States is like built this way inside.
Closed off building.
Which is funny, like the use of space, like it's just weird outside of New York. Everything's built we have space to accommodate whatever we want. Like New York, it's just you have to build everything vertically. It's just like because there's no space. And there it's just like just put the library over there, a few clicks that way. It's like whatever.
Right.
It's like it's and it's really pretty. It was like nice to just be there. It was like, oh, this is a pleasant location just on its own. So it was just fun. It was really, but showing up there and when you just see that the front, you're just like, whoa, it just hit me. It was like, wow, this is insane. I thought it's one of those things. I thought I was prepared for it, but I really wasn't, especially when you get in, and then you loop around to go to the courtyard and you're like, oh my God.
Yes. And any of our listeners who haven't listened to Slaying It, there are some leading up to the first episode, and you, Frank, put in your audio reaction. I think it's audio from your video of walking up to the front of the school. And we had the same exact thing. I think I told you this at Comic-Con. I walked, I'm like, this is where Xander runs into the bar riding his skateboard on that's the very first thing we see of Xander. And my friends were like, okay. They were big Buffy fans too, but they didn't have that kind of visceral reaction. And we're walking into the courtyard. I'm like, oh, this is where they're like, when all the students start trying to leave and the vampires start trying to leave in the graduation episode.
Yeah,
this
there's
is where
the stairs
Angel is standing. Yes, exactly.
And we found those windows in the front.
Yes.
I forget. Yeah, that was just an accidental discovery. It's like, let's just walk around the building, and we just like, oh my god, these windows.
Yeah.
Where I think so, I forget who gets. Jenny Calendar. Gets
Jenny
killed
Calendar,
in front,
right?
Yeah, gets killed in front of them. We're just like, holy cow! Spoilers, by the way.
But our listeners know by now. They've been forewarned plenty of times.
Now 20 years.
Buffy by now, you're wrong.
Yeah, it's on you at this point.
Hashtag not too soon.
So speaking of not being prepared, I tried to prepare myself for the trivia competition on Friday night. I think I told the story, like it's a little over a 2-hour drive for me to get down there. And the whole time I'm like, I got this. I turned on ChatGPT, like in voice, like talk back and forth mode. And I'm like, give me some Buffy trivia. I need to practice for this trivia competition we're going to. So it's just throwing out things, like what's the name of the actor who played this? And I'm like, oh snaps, I got no idea. This is too hard. So like, let's back it up. Give it to me in multiple choice. So then it starts giving me trivia questions in multiple choice. And so I'm choosing, and as it goes, some things are repeating. I'm like, okay, I'm getting better. I'm ready for this. It was on a completely base level to what happened at the actual trivia contest. And we sat down and went, Analese is the biggest Buffy fan I know. And I'm looking at her where it's like, what's the address of the cross street where Buffy's mom lives? And we're like, we were not prepared. How did you feel about the trivia competition?
It reminded me, I have a friend who is a Star Wars fan. Now, I thought I was a Star Wars fan. I grew up watching those movies. I've seen them all. I have a good working knowledge. When I hear a joke, I get the reference. Yep. It was on a set, and he's really big into Star Wars. And then there was somebody else who was reading before the extended universe that had been going on before Disney bought it.
Yeah.
Like they were both very literate in that. And at one point I said, I will join this 3-person conversation because I know Star Wars. And at one point in the conversation, I didn't know if they were speaking English anymore. Because I didn't understand what they were talking about. Yeah. I was like, and I just gracefully stepped back. It's like, yeah, I'm not a fan as big as I thought I was.
That's how I felt too. I'm like, are we talking about the same thing? I guess I'll go to the bar. Here's what I can contribute. I'll buy a round. Exactly.
Rob kept making sure our table
into the shrubs.
Rob kept making sure our table had drinks and snacks. He did great.
That's all I could do.
We are hosting a trivia contest, which I believe.
I'm excited. I've been invited to be part of Battle of Buffy fans on the Slaying It podcast, and I'm going to get wrecked. Oh. I told Juliet I'm going to lose, but I will battle like a principal on the Hellmouth. Like I'll give it my all and give you some good content. But man,
I'm not writing the questions. We have somebody who's going to be writing the questions, and they are meticulous. They actually carry. She provides us with a lot of our show notes, like where she gives us like some really arcane trivia that nobody else on the planet knows. If you were there for the walk and talk with Dave and Greenwalt at the end of the day at the HellmouthCon, she was the one chiming in, basically schooling the executive producer about where it's like it actually happened over here. So we have her writing the question. So
that's amazing.
All I could say is good luck.
Yeah, no.
Oh my god.
No, I'm gonna get creamed by whoever you put me up against. I love Buffy. It has framed a lot of my life. I was 18 when it premiered, and I watched it live at the time as I was evolving into the person I am. Like, it has all these impactful things, and I remember impactful moments, but I couldn't tell you what the street Buffy lives on. I can't tell you the name of each and every spell or book that they reference.
Right.
You give me the big overarching things where I thrive, which I was hoping there were questions about, like which 2 episodes were aired after season because of the, like, I can tell you what happened at the time, right? I was ready for those questions. They didn't even come up.
Yeah, I've read Tales of the Vampires, Tales of the Slayers. I've read those books. It's like, I think I'm a fan, but then I'm gonna learn very quickly alongside the contestants how big not a fan I actually am when they hit with these questions.
I'm fully willing to lift up those who have all of that knowledge in their head about the show. Yeah, but it was, so the trivia night was a thing. I remember we were there with another friend of mine for the trivia night, and he picked us up to take us there. So we rode in one car together. We were asking ChatGPT questions, and there was one in particular, and it was really strange that ChatGPT generated a question about what vampire killed Harmony in a Graduation episode, and I was like, that was just a random vampire. Yeah. That wasn't a thing. And then
there's lore. There's lore for that vampire.
No, I think
he's got a comic book series,
right? No, I think it's just Chat GPT because it actually knew it was a random vampire that didn't have a name. So like we were like, yeah, we're ready. And then the first questions come and we're like, oh.
Nope, we're not ready.
Yeah, I think I'm good at trivia till I find out the hard way every time about any subject I think I have a solid acumen in. It's like, no, you don't.
And then there was a guy from the UK somewhere who has memorized every monologue ever Buffy ever gave in the show and stands up on stage and goes like, give me an episode. And somebody shouts off an episode and then he's kind of, his face kind of glazes over and then just delivers script reading basically from memory.
Crazy.
Yeah. Tone, timbre, rhythm, tempo, like to the T. It was like pressing play on the show. That was just phenomenal.
Yeah, I saw a lot of, well, any convention you go to, you see the commitment people have to the thing they're there for. It never ceases to blow my mind. It's like, wow, it's endless. The amount of that, not just like it just the costuming people do. And some of the costuming, it's like that took you months. Yeah. That clearly took you a large portion of your life to do that for this one day. And it's hot out.
Yes. Because that same person had full vamp face the next day.
In the keep it the whole day.
The whole day.
I joked afterwards. I said, I wish I loved anything in my life as much as that guy loves Buffy the Vampire scripts.
I understand that you all will be running the trivia next year. Did I hear that right?
Doing that?
At Comic-Con?
I think so. We might be. I think so.
Oh, okay.
I don't know 100%. It's still like up in the air. Like these were like conversations that we were having with the
fandom charities.
Fandom charities.
Yeah.
We were having with fandom charities just at the booth. So it's something we were talking about. I'm not 100%, but it seems that way right now, but that could change. I don't know. I can't. It could be. Yeah. But we're going to be there. We're definitely going to be there. Like that's the thing. Like, so we're actually still trying to figure out like, what are we going to do? Because we want to make it special next year.
Right on.
You mentioned the cosplay aspect of it, like of any convention. What I missed it. So what was it like at BuffyCon? What did we see that was like super impressive there?
The vamp faces really for me were like, because it wasn't just like stuff like Halloween shop stuff. This is professional appliances, meticulous with contacts, the whole nine, and not like, again, like not like Dracula teeth that the plastic was that you go, oh, that one that like Nicolas Cage puts in Vampire's Kiss. It's like it's like full, like these are porcelain high-end materials. Yeah.
Yes.
And the costuming, like Azzy had this incredible Victorian era dress who was on stage too when they said their lines.
Yes.
And it was insane. It's like that took you a long time to make that.
And I really appreciate even those that didn't have faces, but there was a younger couple there who were dressed in the pajamas from Once More with Feeling. They're dressed as Xander. But like I'm like, oh, they look really comfy. And then I had to look down at the girl's shoes because she had the little heel with the fuzzy ball at the front. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they're Anya and Xander. Like now I see it.
Oh, in Once More with Feeling.
Once More with Feeling. Yeah. Like, so there were some that were subtle, but then you have to really think they were deep. Right? You had to really think, oh, that's this from this. And there were a few instances like that.
Yeah, I saw a bunch of stuff that really blew my mind. I got to go through my footage because I really want to put together a nice video about that eventually. It's just that we kind of launched the show there and we're like in the thick of it, just getting the show out.
Right.
Hopefully like soon we'll have some time to like really put out all the because we record everything now.
Yeah.
Like at Hellmouth at San Diego, we just record everything we're doing together now just because I know there's, that's fun. Like as a fan, I like to see that kind of stuff, like the behind the scenes stuff, putting that together, and hopefully we'll find a good like home for all that stuff. Like we have a YouTube channel, but like right now, I really want to build that YouTube channel up to like really have some fun stuff on there.
Oh yeah. Some great behind the scenes stuff. I know you probably have some great footage about a lot of that. Yeah.
Did you hear the other episode where she had all the daily tapes that she was
the VHS dailies? Yeah.
That's like she just said, I was thinking of throwing them out. I was like, no.
What?
No. Don't do that.
Now, did Juliet donate the prize? Because they did have the call sheets as a prize, and I was like, "Wow, how did they get a hold of those?" And then I heard that episode where she talked about having all those call sheets and dailies.
It was such a crazy day that
of course.
I'll have to. If you told me she pulled a gun on everybody and emptied their wallets, I'd believe you because it was such a crazy. weekend that I was like, I was really out. I had to check out of the trivia night a little early because I was just so exhausted from travel. And I knew Saturday, which was a long day, was going to be a long day. So me and Juliet were up texting at 4 a.m. and we didn't get into our hotel room till like midnight.
Jeez.
So,
okay.
And she was up an hour before me because she's a machine.
Right. She's used to those low sleep, early call days.
In the world of like 30-second or less videos and the popularity, those tapes are gold right now. I mean, I can imagine that's just tons of content.
Those are original then
with
the GURARG sticker on them. Like Mutant Enemies
wow. Yeah.
In house. With like handwritten labels. It's just like, you understand, like people would collect that? That's a huge collector's item.
Yes. That's amazing.
So cool. You said that was a long day, and I understand that HellmouthCon ends with a prom. It's like class of 99 prom,
which was so great. I loved being there for that. I was surprised because I didn't know that was going to be there.
Oh, okay.
Like, I didn't know anything like that was going to be a thing.
You went there with a purpose to promote the podcast.
Anything like, if I'm still alive after I get off stage, everything else is bonus. That's where I was at. So I didn't know any of the events following because I was just so fixated on that. And like, we put this together so quickly because we were talking about doing a show, and it's like, HellmouthCon's coming up. It's like, yeah, we should really do something for that. And like, by the time we like really said, let's do this, it was like HellmouthCon was like a week away. So we were recording that trailer we aired there the morning of.
Oh gosh.
And my cousin, thank God my cousin couldn't make it because he could be home editing it and putting it together for us. So while we're doing everything else that's going on, we're like going back and forth with him, listening to the trailer, giving notes and saying, maybe we should do this and do that while we're all running around doing everything else. So it was pretty hectic.
So let's talk about that long day. HellmouthCon started, I want to say maybe 10 o'clock, maybe 9 o'clock. I don't quite remember. However, there were 2 pay events that fans could go in a little bit early. One of them was a photo shoot they called Bad Girls of Buffy, which included Claire Kramer, Julie Benz,
Mercedes.
Juliet, and Mercedes, right? Those of us who had tickets to that got in early. And then right after that, there was a breakfast. So some folks came in right after that photo shoot for breakfast. What I remember from that is that we were all in line. They lined us up off to the side while they were setting up the camera for the photo shoot there. And Juliet and her husband came down the line and just stopped and talked to everybody and even said, come to my panel at 2:00. We have a big announcement. She was really great. And then the rest of them came out and we did the photo shoot. But right off the bat, I went, I bet there's a podcast. I turned to my friends. I'm like, I bet there's a podcast. I bet that's what it is. I like it. And I've told you all, I got to tell Juliet, like, it's really about time that someone from the cast gets involved with something like this. Caveat to the rewatcher, I actually have not listened to that podcast, but prior to them starting, it really just was not a lot of great content that's Buffy related, or people who did it as a shtick, or people who, they watched the show to make the podcast and weren't big fans of the show. And it was a little bit disappointing. So yeah, it's exciting.
That's how this discussion happened, because we were talking about working together in just a general way. We didn't know what it was because we're both filmmakers. So we were talking about that for a little while, but neither one of us want to get involved in film the way the film business is right now. It's just
right,
like,
of course.
You really want to hustle, and because she just finished the film, do you really want to hustle getting the finances and doing all that and then putting 2 years? So it's just like, I'm doing this podcast thing right now. It's like, and it was actually my cousin who came up and said, there's not a Buffy podcast with the cast. I'm like, what? That doesn't make sense, because they're ubiquitous for every show. There's probably a BJ and the Bear one with
oh yeah, for sure.
This probably is. I haven't checked, but I'm gonna bet there is.
Great, Paul. So let's get into it. What is the elevator pitch for the Slaying It podcast?
It's Juliet Landau, who played Drusilla, and a couple of really loud fans, me and my cousin Chris. And we're going through every episode of Buffy and Angel and whatever else is in the Buffy verse, like even books, the comic books. And we're going to have on a lot of guests from the show. We've already recorded a ton of interviews. Should I say who we have recorded?
Well, I mean, if you've got them in the can, you might as well.
Yeah, we have him in the can, yeah. So we had on Julie Benz, definitely. We also had Ken Lerner on, who played Principal Flutie, who's never been interviewed.
Principal Flutie. Rip.
Yeah, which is amazing. And he was just one of those amazing guys that has been in the business. He's in a million things. You've seen him. Forget about Flutie. He's in everything.
Yes.
He's worked with every major director that's ever lived, and he had stories for days. We had to like stop okay, that's enough. It's just like we could talk to you all day. And we just interviewed the other day the actor who plays Owen in Never Kill a Boy on the First Date.
Oh, that's great.
We're gonna have Prince Armin Shimmerman. We're gonna have on eventually soon.
Snyder.
Of course, James Marsters is gonna be on, and so
that's incredible.
For me, it's just a dream come true because it's just like I never thought she would say. It just kind of happened. Like it wasn't this calculated thing. It just kind of happens. Like, yeah, let's do something together. What should we do? And it's just like, and it was just when my cousin said, "There's no Buffy podcast." I'm like, that's funny. And then it was like,
and then there really isn't.
Like getting back to the rewatcher, they are great people. We've been talking to them a lot.
Yeah.
And Juliet was just recently on their episode for Crush.
Yes.
I think we're going on there at one point, or they're coming on our show. I'm not sure. We're emailing back and forth, but they have been so supportive. It's such an amazing thing to see, like, show that could be, it's in the same milieu as their show. And you would think, like, way show business is, that people would be protective and like maybe confrontational. Like, no, they're like, oh yeah, you want to come on our show? It's like, you want to come on your show? I'm like, wow, everybody. Cause I come in from film where
where everything's competitive and secret and don't talk about it. And
podcasting is all, like we joke, podcasting is incestual. Like everybody does everybody's show because that's how people who listen to podcasts find other podcasts.
Shows,
right.
And it's just community building, right? The Buffy community. If you really truly love Buffy, why wouldn't you embrace?
Exactly. It's just content. It's just like content creators in general. There is that sense of community that's not in any of the other like major art forms or like commercial art forms, like film and TV and music. I don't see that. I can't speak for music, but film and TV, I could tell you that's not a thing.
Right.
Like that's just not that sense of community. Hey, let's help each other out. Like, let's do that. That'd be great. And like being in the content creation space, everybody's so generous, like, with that, especially for me, but really for Juliet, she was like, people are nice outside of the film business.
And she's been in it for a long time.
Look at the connections. It's been however long it's been, but you're getting all of these names because of Juliet's connections. I'm sure it's just a phone call of like, hey, remember the great times we had? Want to come talk about it? And it's a good time, right?
And Juliet is friends and knows, because she's such a likable, her and Dev are just the most likable, lovable people you'll ever meet.
They really are.
They're so nice, they make you feel bad about yourself.
Yes, 100%. I walked away from Comic-Con going, God, I'm such a nerd. She's so lovely and she's so nice.
Yeah, if she'll always call, like, just like if I have a cold, she'll like call me like, you feeling better? Have you taken this? It's just like, you don't have to do this. It's just like, now I got to do this to somebody else, so I don't feel like the garbage person that I am, because it's like, oh, you sick? Well, if you're alive tomorrow, I'll see you then, I guess.
You'll reach out when you're better.
Yeah. Work that out.
Yeah, it's so lovely. And I'm so glad. I did listen to a little bit of the rewatcher. I just missed it when it started. I was kind of done with Buffy podcasts and just turned my attention to other things for so long. I'm glad to hear I listened to the episode that Juliet was on. I'm like, okay, these two have it. They have it. I've got to go back to the beginning and listen, because really now here's something that, so now that I've not caught up with them, I'm listening to Slaying It and Rewatcher, episode 1, episode 2. So it's really cool to listen to it that way. Kudos to them. I don't mean any disrespect to them, because they weren't around when I was looking for Buffy podcasts and very frustrated.
Yeah, I love this, because my favorite thing to do is make people watch the things, and we've talked about this on the show. It's like I force people to watch the things I'm interested at the moment, or just what I'm interested in general. Yes. Like if you come to my house, you'll be like, we're watching this. It's like, well, we're watching this. So this is a very natural extension of who I am, the show, in that it's just like I get to talk about something I like, and now you all have to watch it.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of how my friendship with Rob works. He has worked since the 90s when we were teenagers, to the extent that actually this podcast, our podcast, was initially going to be a Buffy podcast.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, we were thinking about doing it, and we were trying to plan that out. And
I talked her out of that stupid idea right away.
we talked about it for years before we came up with Nerd Best Friends. And we had two different viewpoints. Me as obviously a woman who watched it as a teen when it was live, and he watched it as a full grown adult. And we just had different viewpoints on it. And we were just going to talk about it in a manner that I felt was missing from podcasting. But I'm really glad we didn't go that route, because this is even more amazing. Rob's big question was, okay, when we're done watching the series, we're done watching Angel, we can do the movie. What happens after that? And he was right. We had a lot more things to talk about that we came up with Nerd Best Friends instead, in which we could talk about our love and our fandom and our being nerdy about anything we want. And Buffy is one of those. So
yeah, that's another one of my shows is Draft Class, which is where we draft just things that we are like we'll pick a topic or an actor or a filmmaker. So it'd be like Robert Altman, and we all draft our favorites. And that's like, that scratches a similar itch for me.
Yes.
Where it's just like, oh, I could talk about like my favorite movie. We just put out our Robin Williams one, and it's our funniest episode we've ever done. Like, it's a two-parter, and it's really, because we record them, those we have a lot of lead time on. We record those months and months and months. I'm so disorganized that I thank God I have somebody like Juliet and my cousin Chris in my life, because I never will get anything done. It's just like, they'll just, Frank, that goes here. Thank you.
You gotta have a team.
Let's go back to HellmouthCon real quick. Frank, did you get to see any of the panels or go to the Sunnydale Mall, or were you all business while you were there?
I actually hosted a panel at one point with Shelby Novak, a couple other content creators.
What panel was it?
What was the name of the panel? I don't remember the name of the panel. Again, it's a blur.
Yeah.
But it was a panel specifically talking about content creation and specifically podcasting and what that entails and like how that works. And so it's just like they got a few like podcasters. I grabbed my friend Shelby Novak, who has a show on the same network that I'm on called Scare You to Sleep, which is a great show. Anybody check it out.
Yeah, we initially weren't going to go to any panels because I think the titles didn't jive with us. There wasn't a lot of information to them leading up to it that we were like, okay, during the panels is when we'll like make sure we eat, like we're old, make sure we get something to eat. We sit down in the shade for a minute, drink some water, stretch. Like we thought about all that, but then accidentally we're like, we needed someplace cool. We're like, well, let's just go see what panel's going on before Juliet and Julie's, where you all made the announcement. We were in the one before it with Claire Kramer, and I'm going to forget everyone else that was in that. Yeah, Mercedes was in there, and there was a few other people, and they were just talking about, the one that played the roommate, freshman year roommate.
Right.
Well, the character's name's Robin. So they were there and just talking about their experiences. And I was sitting there going, oh my gosh, we've missed all of these really great stories. And Claire Kramer told a really great story in there that I don't want to spoil because I've reached out to her and said, hey, will you come tell that story on this podcast? Because we're doing an episode in the future about kind of intersectionality. And she talks about specific Stephen King thing framed her interview with Joss for the character Glory. And I'm hoping I can get her to recreate that story here.
Who's your favorite big bad?
Ooh,
that's a tough one.
You know, we talked about that on our episode. We talked about favorite villains, but not big bad.
I don't want to spoil it if you guys have like all planned for that.
No, we recorded it.
We did our Buffy episode.
Thinking Nathan Fillion is my favorite big bad of all time.
He's really good. He's scary.
He's so good because he's so charming, but he's so evil. And when he's poking out the eyeball is just absolutely brutal. That whole arc at the end of the series was so perfect because the series went on for a good number, like for years and years. And a lot of times that means it kind of declines until it cancels. But its finale was the best of Buffy as far as I'm concerned.
That show is like like I always point to it. This is how you're supposed to structure a long form storytelling. Like this is where there's no fat, there's no missing piece, there's no things that feel left hanging, where everything feels important and you should always be paying attention. Like that show, I think is the high watermark for me.
You can tell from episode 1 to the final at 143 that Joss knew exactly where it was going, and the stuff in the middle may have changed, and the overarching villains each season may have changed, and character development obviously went its natural ways. But if you watch the final episode and then turn around and watch the first episode again, it's there. The first is there. Buffy's whole long series arch about it being a job and how, and that gets closed at the end with releasing it's all there. He knew exactly how it was going to end from the beginning.
It's so frustrating when you watch a show where they spend like the final episodes just resolving a thing they came up with a few episodes earlier and not like the thesis statement of the show.
Right.
That's why I don't watch a lot of TV, because that's really frustrating when that
Right.
goes on.
I think Stranger Things is kind of hitting that mark right now too, because they're supposed to be answering questions from the first season in this last, but that remains to be seen because it's not out yet. I'm hoping.
Yeah.
I have hope.
There was like a lot of shows like I always talk about the X-Files, where that kind of went off the rails towards the end
It
for
did.
me. It really
Yeah.
did. And it like really informed how like I'm very cautious about getting into shows. I only get into shows. I'm the same way with you. I won't watch Buffy when it was on because I need to know from a trusted source that the ending is worth my time, because I can't, I won't be, I'll be very upset about the time I've wasted when a show just, so I was, like,
shows
so
get
I
canceled.
I had somebody, the way I got into the show, right? Oh, they get canceled. Like I remember watching Carnival.
Oh, yeah.
I was so into Carnival. And then it's just like, that's it. It's gone. It's never coming back. Like, what do you mean? I spent hours talking and thinking about this.
Right. Right.
I need to know what happens.
I need to know.
Well, I mean, I was 18. I wasn't as wise when Buffy was on, and you know, it served a particular purpose and a particular demographic, and I was that demographic at the time, right? You didn't have badass female leads who were pretty and in high school, and the analogy of high school is hell and life is hell, and I have this weight of the world on my shoulders. Like, there's a lot that spoke to us at the time. For me, the fun was like the in between Monday to Monday talking about like, what do you think is going to happen? I can't believe this happened. Like, I remember the moment the council declared to Buffy that Glory was a god. We gasped. And that episode ended, and for a week we were shook, right? Like, that experience to me was special, and thankfully it was a show that was complete like Buffy. Because you're right, it could have ended up wonky like my second favorite show, Dexter, just goes off the rails. And I love Julie Benz. I got to tell her I'm so glad she's in my top 2 favorite shows ever. But man, it gets wonky.
Listen, I never found out if Earl ever repaid back all the karma he owed in My Name is
exactly.
Earl.
Because it stopped being about
that's
that.
Right. That was another one. That was the writer's strike, like killed that show. And I loved My Name is Earl. That's so funny.
Yeah, that's what's amazing about the show. I didn't catch it when it was on. I think I just recently talked about the first time I watched an episode just randomly. I watched Ted. Because I happened to catch it as it was on. And I watched it. I was like, that was good. And I just never thought about it until what happened was a friend of mine got into Firefly.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And then, of course, that's only 14 episodes. And he made me watch Firefly. And he's like, that's the same people who made Buffy. I'm like, really? Like, he's like, that's 7 seasons, isn't it? And 5 seasons of Angel.
That's a lot. That's a
commitment.
I really like Firefly, but then we had another friend of ours do Recon, and then he came back. It's good. I'm like, damn it, now we got to watch the whole thing.
Suckered in.
I would say those two are similar in my mind as far as like the way that it ramped up to that last storyline, like because we were talking about big bads with Caleb and just the implosion of the school and the Hellmouth, and like just you could tell they were throwing budget in there and getting all the actors they could in there. That experience for me was reproduced with the Serenity movie that had to be done because, to finish off the story of Firefly. We did a Firefly episode and we had some other guests on and stuff, and to a member everybody's like, I don't like Serenity, I hated that movie, and I'm like, that is the coolest movie ever. Like, it gives your heroes an ending. It's amazing.
No one said they hated it. It just wasn't well liked by the panel.
That's how I personally felt when I was
you took it personally.
Love of the Serenity movie.
No one said they hated it.
He felt attacked.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? It's perfect. It gives us an ending, which is what I love that Buffy did, even though like there were openings, right? So it could continue, and all the kind of canonical comic books or, audio dramas and stuff they're doing is great, but it was satisfying, right? When you see
I could walk away.
Driving away on that bus. It's like, cool, what an awesome story.
My time wasn't wasted. There was like, what a great last shot. That's a great
shot. The final line. What are you going to do now? And she just smirks, because the whole series has been about
that.
Yes. Yeah. Like, it gave me chills right now just saying that. Like,
you're normal
so
now.
Good. Yeah.
You could live a normal life. That's all you ever wanted since episode 1. And it's like, here we are.
And so this whole time I've been thinking, Frank, you asked the question about favorite big bad. I'm going to go with all of season 2, but I have a very emotional attachment to season 2, right? I was 19. It was life discovery. It was first loves. For me, the big bad in that season is not Angel. Buffy has to tell her mom she's the Slayer. She loses her home. She gets expelled from school. Her friends almost die, and she doesn't know until she's about to leave town that Willow actually lives, right? She sees her in the wheelchair across the street from the school while she's with her little bag and her sad overalls about to get on the bus. She loses the love of her life, has to send him into who knows where. Everything pays off that season, and that burden, that's where the burden of this gift that she has is the strongest. Even more, I think, than the end of season 5, where she has to basically know that she's jumping into her death. This burden is even bigger because she has to stay alive and still has that burden.
So you were watching season 2 as it aired, and that's like when the show went from it has its audience to a phenomenon.
Yes.
Now it's a phenomenon.
Yes.
So you were there for that. You were like, I was peripherally aware of it
because it was around pop culture at that point once it exploded. Yeah.
You were water cooling it.
They used to film on USC's campus. So we'd find out when they were filming on campus and like kind of stalk the trailers. So there's the episode, I think it's Go Fish, where Xander joins a swim team. The pool they're in is a basement pool at USC.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so we were like stalking the trailers, and we see Nicholas Brendan come out in the Speedo, but he's got a robe and the robe's over. We're like, what kind of episode is going on right now that Xander's in a Speedo? Like, we were trying to like guess where the show was going at the time, because that episode wouldn't have aired for many, many months later. But there's a lot of personal connection to that. I will say this, the episode where Buffy tells her mom about being the Slayer and they have that big argument, I recommend to you all and our listeners, go back and watch it with the context of someone telling their parent that they're gay, because this was a coming out time for me. Like, I didn't come out to myself till I was 20. And then I didn't come out to my friends and family till I was 21. I'm in the middle of that. Again, that's why this season is so personal. I'm in the middle of all that mess and trying to figure myself out. And then you have this scene, and I was in tears because I think Rob said the allegory is thick, because it could be about anything, but it is like, if you go back and watch that scene and take out the word Slayer, and are you sure you haven't just all those lines? What do you think about the blood you wash out of my clothes? And why do you think this is like, it is so good. And so I see season 2 as just, it's about Buffy the Slayer and not just about Angel being Angelus. For me, big bad is season 2. All of season 2.
Wow. Yeah, I can't top that. I like the mayor because he's funny.
Oh, the mayor's great. The mayor's great.
The mayor. And I also love how sweet he is with Faith. And how it's genuine, and how he's so polite, but he's so evil. That's my favorite kind of villain to watch.
Yeah.
Because those are frightening to me in that.
That's real life.
Because they're smiling to you. It's like, but this guy's a problem.
Yeah. When he flips the switch from nice guy who's a little bit germphobic to the serious, this ascension is going to happen. Like, it's creepy as heck, and he nails it.
And the weird abusive relationship with Faith and stuff, and how he treats her.
Yeah.
But it's kind of sweet though. It's really sweet. It's like, oh, he's such a nice, he's like, he really does care. Like, I thought he was working her, but it's like, no, it really, in the finale, when she taunts him, she's like, he says what she did to Faith.
Yes.
And that's what triggers him. It's like, he really did care about her. It wasn't a work.
Right. And Buffy knew it and used it to her advantage to lead him to the library. And,
right.
Well, gosh. I wanted to like Adam. It's the greatest last line of a villain. Well, God. I mean, it signifies exactly what you were saying. Like, he's actually a genuine, nice guy, but evil. I wanted to like Adam. Even at the time, I wanted to like him. And they used all those like early 2000s Matrix CGI stuff that was new and phenomenal at the time. Something went wonky for me in that season. It's Frankenstein analogy. I wanted to like him so much, and it didn't land.
The last time I rewatched 4, because I always had it in my head that 4 is like my least favorite season. But then I rewatched it, and there's a lot of strong stuff in 4 that I was surprised by, because like I had this opinion of it the first time I watched it, because especially after 3, I think 3 is perfect. 3 is a perfect season. Like, it's just, I think the argument a lot of people have, and I self include, it's like 3 or 5, I think, are in terms of just the structure of them and what the story they tell, they're just perfect structurally. And 4 is a little bit it's, because it has to do a lot of business. Like, you have to move the location, you have to reestablish the show again. So it has a lot of business. I think it's a lot more successful than I originally gave it credit for and how it does that. But the finale of season 4 is one of my top 5 favorite episodes, which is
You're not talking about the dream episode. You're talking about
the dream. No, I'm talking the dream episode.
You are talking about the okay. Yes, that's a great episode.
I love that episode so much. I love when those. We used to call them. It was just the term. My friend who was watching it with me. The out of the box episode. You would like say
100%.
That's an out of the box episode where they kind of break through the format of the show and do something completely. I think you would say Hush is like that. The Body is obviously one of those.
Yes.
Once More Feeling. The Zeppo.
Oh, Zeppo's a great episode.
I love the Zeppo.
It's one of my top for sure. That end of season 4 was so in the time was so strange. You were right. It was it broke the mold. It broke the pattern. It left us scratching our heads going, what the heck is going on? And then you get the first episode of season 5 where Dawn just all of a sudden, like, that's another moment that we all went, what? And then had to wait an entire week to figure out what was going on. Like, those two really broke the mold in what Buffy was doing.
See, that's the thing. In TV writing, I have a friend in TV who tells me, like, they basically write to season 3. Like, when you're pitching a show and you're trying to get it to market, you have the first 3 seasons lined up. So 4 basically has the job of setting up storylines that are going to play out for the rest of the series.
Yes.
Like, after that. So that's why it's burdened by a lot of stuff. I feel bad for Riley because he has to come in. He's like Martha Jones in Buffy and Doctor Who. It's like you have to follow that. It's like you can't, it's impossible. You can't follow it. I like what he does. He's one of those characters I've grown to appreciate, like where initially I was just, again, because you have that knee-jerk reaction. It's like, he's not Angel. Like,
exactly. Who is this guy?
Get out of here, you.
What is Buffy seeing him?
What is he seeing him? Get him out of here. But I understand, like, it's like that's an unwinnable situation, and he does do a lot of interesting things with that. But that is the point of it. It's like that is the point of Martha Jones. Like, you're the person who's playing cleanup after this incredible, this changed the way I look at the world relationship. Good luck with that.
Right. He's rebound to the extreme, and then the character knows it. Right. You get to the episode. Yeah. You get to the episode where he tells Xander that she doesn't love me. And you're like, oh God, all these awful things that I've been thinking he knows.
And he starts dealing with it in unhealthy ways. And I found that stuff interesting. And like initially when I was watching it, I was just like, go away. You're not Angel. But then as I'm watching it, like I get into all that stuff, like how he starts hurting himself and doing like crazy things because of how the understanding of who he is in this relationship is just starting to eat at him. And it really is amazing.
Is there anything about HellmouthCon beyond after the big announcement really rings in your memory?
The prom was amazing because that was just all the artwork that people put up on the walls that was so much fun, and the prize, which the class protector prize.
Right,
when I saw that, I was like, "Oh my God!"
Oh, what was that?
Juliet gave out the little umbrella that they give Buffy at the prom in season 3, and it says Buffy Summers Class Protector. They had a replica of it. It wasn't the actual one, right? Someone made one.
No, somebody made that. And
someone made it, and they gave it out to a fan at the prom.
Yeah, for the best cosplay, and there was that couple. That couple, the band Candy, Giles and Joyce.
Yes, they were awesome.
They were the belle of the ball that weekend.
Easily. Because they nailed it. They looked like them, not just in cosplay. Like
they were age appropriate.
If you looked in the mirror and said, "What cosplay do I look like?" It's right out of like someone drew them from a comic book. Like, oh, they got it. It was great.
And so they got the prize, and it was like that was fun to watch that. Yeah, that whole night was so much fun because like now for me, on my end, the pressure's off. I could get to enjoy this thing that I've been to. Like once I got off the stage, like now I could enjoy this. Like enjoy this, as opposed to like the nerves.
Right.
I was going through because like I'm gonna be on stage. He's like, you ever been on stage before? Nope. It's like
how hard could it be?
I don't remember it. Like I said, I don't remember anything that happened. Thank God I was recording the whole time, because if you see, I have my hands with my pocket camera just like sitting there, just stiff armed, just like not immobile filming, because it basically had to be my eyes for after the fact, because I am not registering any of this except the nerves.
Well, let's talk about that real quick. So Juliet and Julie Benz do a panel talking about big bads. They have all the beautiful pictures playing behind them of the makeup line that's out now, Vampire Cosmetics. And
again, another thing that's like, there never was a
how did that not
Buffy
exist before?
Makeup line?
Right.
Like how that's like the biggest ball drop of all time. Like when she
Yeah, I'll
told
agree
me,
with you on that one.
like,
For
that's
sure.
just obvious.
Right. Oh yeah, and no one ever stepped up to do it, and now they're promoting this. Julie Benz and Juliet are promoting this, and they have the pictures going on, and they're answering questions and being funny. The panel ends, and Julie Benz leaves, and then Juliet calls you out, and then Chris is on an iPad because he was sick and not able to come.
Yeah, his AC for his house,
there
and
we go.
he has a baby at home, and this has been in like a record high hot summer, and his whole AC unit like caved like a day before he was supposed to fly out. So he was dealing with that. But yeah, he came out on an iPad, and my friend Shelby Novak, she was like Vanna Whiting him on the stage.
Yes, she was. Juliet plays the trailer. They announce the podcast. You all have everyone come up and cheering for it and taking some good footage of that.
Which that cheer is now part of our entrance music now. I think that's a great inclusion there. And then Juliet asked people to come up, give their best Drusilla lines. And you came out, do it again.
That was the thing. Everyone who went up before me was all cosplay. And couple, particularly Drusilla cosplay, and delivering lines from the show. And I'm there with my college friends. We watched it together week after week after week. I was trying to tell Juliet this story at Comic-Con as quickly as I could because she was being ushered away, but my friends made fun of me season 2 because we moved in together, my band friends. I said, hey, I have to work Monday nights. The one thing I watch every week is Buffy. Can you please tape it for me? And at the time with VHS, you had to have it live on the TV to tape it. So we get to the 3rd or 4th episode of the season, and I'm unlocking the door to get in my apartment at like 10 o'clock at night after I'm working, and they're there and they just pull me in and sit down right now, and you need to watch this. We have questions for you. And that's how they all got suckered in all of a sudden every Monday. And then when it went to Tuesday, every Tuesday night, we were graduated and working. When the series finale came, we flew in to watch the series finale together. Like watching the show together was a thing. So they're like, go tell her our favorite line. Go. I'm like, what am I going to say? I'm not in cosplay, but they kept pushing me forward of the stage because we didn't come up in the big group. We kind of stood back and just yelled from the middle of the stage. And they're like, go, like pushing me up. And I'm like, fine, I'll go up and do it. But man, it was cool.
You nailed it. You killed it. Like that line, like you see that gets a big pop in the video.
Yeah. Well, I haven't seen the video yet.
Oh, you haven't seen the video?
It hasn't been released.
I'll send it to you.
Thank you. Yeah. Juliet keeps saying soon. We're gonna use it soon. We're gonna use it soon. And soon hasn't happened, which I'm okay with. Y'all do what you need to do. But
it's just like we are all under the gun on time. We are so like, I feel bad because it's just like she's flying out to London tomorrow. We have a meeting tonight. We just got off the phone 10 minutes before. Like we are working like hard to like get this out there, get out the door. Plus it's like we want it to be good. Like, you know what I mean? Like we really like we're putting a lot of work into it. Like we put those production pieces together, like the missing scene. Like I love, those are my favorite things to edit, by the way, because I love doing audio drama. That's what I was doing kind of before the show started, because that's my favorite thing to do. I love creating like audio worlds. Like how do I let you know we're in like a school? Like I need like what do I build? Like what pieces do I need for that? That's my favorite thing to do. So we're constantly, my cousin's doing all the social stuff, and he's kind of taking on some of the editing too. And Juliet's just like, I sold it to her. Like you won't have to work hard, because I didn't want to like take too much of her time up, but she is very hands-on with everything, and she cares a lot about it. Like it's like we're doing this ourselves. Like we're not working. We're doing this for the love of doing it right now. Yeah. And she's all hands-on about every element of the show, which is great. Because I said, listen, you just come in, say stuff, and because you're busy. You do a lot of it, but she doesn't know from like relax. Like she is, whenever she works on anything, she is 110%, and it's great because it makes you want to do that too. Right. And especially when you like what you're doing, like we're laughing our asses off when we record. Yeah. That was one thing I promised her when we started. Is like, listen, at the very least, I don't know if we'll make any money on this or whatever. I just guarantee you that you're gonna laugh harder than you've ever laughed in your life, because that's what happens on these things. Like you just start laughing, and now not only that, you're gonna have a record of it that you could go back to and listen to, which is like a lot of the times I do. With like this show and like my other shows, it's like I want to go back, especially if I'm bluesy. I'm having a bluesy day. Like, here's a time when me and my friends were laughing hysterically about something silly.
I love it.
And the first 2 episodes have been great. Kudos to you all. So far, as the time of this recording, the first 2 episodes are out. Episode 3 is coming out next week, and y'all are churning along. And I appreciate not only obviously the insight from someone who was there doing it with Juliet, but the insight from fans of the show, true fans of the show, is really great.
Which is crazy. Like I don't know how this it's just like it's so this is happening. This is a thing I do now. Like I'm sitting there talking to Julie Benz the other day. I was like, how is this a thing that's happening?
Right.
I didn't just ask that it just happened. That's not supposed to be a thing that actually happens. I'm supposed to go, that would have been nice, and then just go on with my sad life. But it's like, it's amazing when something actually can happen at this advanced age of my life. You're talking about cons earlier, just like, it's tough walking all day. It's like, are you kidding me? My knees. Dude, San Diego Comic-Con, I was destroyed.
Yeah.
I believe it.
Destroyed for like 2 days afterwards. Like I got home and I slept the whole day, but that wasn't enough. I was still done.
Oh yeah, I think I clocked like 9 miles and about 23,000 steps one of the days, and I have a foot problem right now. I'm not supposed to walk more than like a mile a day.
Yeah, it's so big.
Yeah,
because I'm used to New York Comic Con, and New York Comic Con in terms of the convention center aspect of the convention, same. It's very similar. Like it's like the layout is very familiar. It's like, okay, it's like this, but that's just the epicenter of this insane thing that takes over a big chunk of the city that San Diego Comic-Con was.
I mean, it's the city. Everyone does something Comic-Con. Yeah.
I had no idea until Analese was showing me pictures like, oh, we went to this party and it's out on a yacht in the harbor, and we went to this party and it was 3 blocks away. Like, what? And
it's Mardi Gras. Like when you go through the gas lamp district area, it's Mardi Gras for, like I said, because afterwards I had to grab, I couldn't find like a thumb drive to get the trailer that we aired there. So I said, okay, I'll just run to CVS and grab, and it's up this way. 40 minutes of walking through like a wall of people and drunk.
That CVS is just 2 blocks from the convention center, but it takes you an hour to get there.
It was insane. I was not prepared for that. I guess it was intense. It's one of those things. I'm glad I went, but thank God it's just once a year.
Exactly. So what's next for Slaying It? You guys are recording and putting together the YouTube channel.
Figuring out live events. That's another thing that's on the table that I think maybe by the time this airs, that we might have something more concrete. I mean, I hope so, because the dates we're looking at, it would have to be. So we're just trying to do that because that'll be fun. That's what's really big. And I really want to put something together that maybe I'll hold on to that. I got to hold on to that because I have something I want to put together that's fun, that kind of plays into the audio drama aspect of the show. I want to do something like special with that. I'm a big fan of, do you remember Power Records when you were a kid?
Oh yes, of course.
I have a whole bunch of them like here. I'm going to pull one out right now. Okay, this is just one at random, like this one, the Hulk, and I'm a big fan of that. I'd love to put something together like that because that's something, I look at things I like. My favorite is the Kojak one I own, because why would kids want a Kojak with audio drama?
That's funny.
There's a Kojak, like that doesn't make sense. It's amazing what kids would watch. Like I always sit there and go, I can't believe I was allowed to watch what I watched. We just told this story on the air, but Juliet asked us, like, what's a movie that you watched way too young? Which is most of them, but one of the most notable things that ever happened to me and my cousin, it happened to both of us, is that I was like 8 and he was probably 5. And my grandmother, for some reason, she had like she had old people VHS tapes that you would say like Time Life, World War II, just those kind of tapes. Yeah. And that, for some reason, Last House on the Left.
You were 8?
I was 8 and my cousin was 5, and we sat down, and I was like a little bit aware enough that I knew that it was made by the same guy who made, because I was already buying Fangoria, another thing that you should not have been buying when you were 8 years old, but I loved Fangoria. I was a big Fango kid when I was that age, so I knew he had made Last House on the Left, so I'm thinking it's some of that flavor, because I love Freddy. Kids loved Freddy in the 80s,
right?
And it was not like Freddy, not at all.
No. No.
That wasn't That shocked me, and nobody stopped us. It was just like here you go, just put that. They're watching a movie. They're all smoking cigarettes or whatever parents did back then.
Yeah.
It's like they go play cards and smoke cigarettes in the other room. There was a Freddy cartoon.
There was a Freddy cartoon.
There absolutely was. That's so funny.
There was a Freddy phone line too, which
there was. Yes.
Somebody uploaded all the messages onto YouTube, and I sat down and listened to them because I definitely called that line. And I know I did. Like I said, Mom, give me your credit card. Why? You call
what a time.
A 1-900 number. I love it.
There was literally phone service. There was a phone service for Boglins. Like, what's a Boglin got to say? Like, what are they going to talk about?
It was just those, and like an old analog machine too. Once you put your credit card number in there, it was just some reel-to-reel tape would click on with this pre-recorded Boglin sound effect.
Hey, and Boglin, you should
thanks
buy
for
me.
your $5.
Yeah. And they talked
I could not
very slow because you have to.
Because it was per minute.
Per minute, yeah.
I grew up very poor and a mom that worked for the phone company, so everything in my house was on lockdown. We couldn't even call 1-900 numbers. Like, she had the insight on how to do that, like, because she worked for the phone company. Like, I did not have that joy.
We had cable, but we had what was known as a hot box. Yeah, you remember that? Yeah. So that's how we had cable. It was like somebody would climb a ladder, like a family friend. Everybody family knew a person who knew.
You knew a guy that could hook you up.
They'd go onto the phone line and just throw a splitter on it, and then you have this AB box that just ran to your house. And it was so obvious a crime's being committed because it's just a line just like taken from off the phone line right into your home. So it's like clearly there's something you're not supposed to be doing, but nobody cared.
Nope.
Eventually they started getting hip to it, and they would send out a signal that would fry the box.
Yeah.
We used to call them bullets. It's like, oh, they sent a bullet. You need another box. So every now and again, they occasionally send that out, and it'd fry all the hot boxes. So, but those were good times. Yeah.
I started reading and watching horror at such a young age. I think I watched Halloween as a kid, and I started that meme that says the problem with Gen X is that they read Stephen King when they were way too young.
We all
and that's
did,
what's wrong. That's me. I'm the problem.
I remember my dad one Christmas, I still have it, the hardcover, 4 Past Midnight, he got me because I was really into Stephen King when I was a kid. We just did on our show, we did a Stephen King draft where we talk about our favorite books, our favorite movies of Stephen King.
That's amazing.
On Draft Class, and that was because we're the hosts is me, Chris, and John Sachs, who runs that show, and we all we didn't even know. It's like we all just started talking, and I guess it's just if you're of that age, you all have that. I'm a big Stephen King fan. Started reading him very young. It's like me too, and of course you too. Everybody did because everybody did. Didn't it feel like such
Midnight was my first? Yeah.
What? No way.
Yeah, that was my first.
Holy shit, that's insane. That's because
I think I was 10.
Yeah, that's the same thing. Oh my God. That is crazy.
And actually, because of that, his novellas and short stories are like
those are my favorite. Yeah, they still are.
Yeah, same.
I mean, look at different seasons. Like how they almost all of them got made into movies and good ones.
Yes, Apt Pupil I think could have been
Pupil's
better.
Okay. Yeah, I just realized it's like Pupil's okay.
You know these, Rob. That's Stand By Me and
no, you notice me. This was my I'm just kind of fade back into the bushes on this conversation. Let's start talking.
Rob is not a big horror fan.
That's not my. It's not my wheelhouse.
I was a big nerd for horror because I remember getting back to Fango. That's what actually kicked it off. I'll remember the kid's name till I day die. I was 6 years old in lunch, and my friend Niall Dillon just happened to just give me. He had a Fangoria magazine.
Oh wow!
And that set me off on a dark path for a lot of years.
And it never ended.
Yeah. I used to love the catalogs at the end of the magazine where you'd sit there and circle then they have all these really I want that one. I never would get them, but it was just this is what I would get if I actually had a disposable income.
That's good stuff. HellmouthCon is returning 2025 back at Torrance High School. I'm
Very
planning
excited.
on being there. I'm imagining y'all planning on being there.
Yeah. Speaking of panels, we're gonna have we're talking about panels because we wanted some more panels that we'd like too. So we're figuring out that stuff too because I know we have a lot of shows that we're friends with, so maybe we could fill it up with shows that are Buffy adjacent and horror related, something like that.
Sure.
Because that would be fun because we have a lot of people that we work with and do shows with.
But I mean, I find it very creative. I find it to be very soothing and creative, and I'm a musician at heart. I've been playing instruments since I was 10 years old. And
so you're a musician, you're a Buffy fan. I didn't know they made cool principals. When did that start being a thing?
I'm new. I call myself the anti-principal, actually. Like, I'm tatted. I'd rather not dress up every day. You know, I'm down in the mud with the kids playing spirit games. My job is to out-spirit the rest of them. It's just, I don't know how this happened. I don't ever feel adult enough or grown up enough to say that I'm a principal, but there it is on the card. But
that's like the ultimate adult job is principal.
It really is.
Right.
And then at the same time, I have found the right place at the right time for me to be myself and not be a principal, quote unquote. Like, I get to be me, and it's fitting where this school is and where these kids are, and they're responding to it. So it's really fun. I've only done it for a year, so they haven't fired me yet. But yeah, it's really good. And, you know, I think about Principal Flutie all the time in how I react to things. And I think about not being a Snyder, you know.
If I had to pick one, I'd rather be a Flutie than a Snyder.
Yes. Flutie was, you know.
Words to live by.
I'm getting that tattooed on me, Frank. Yeah. I'd rather be a Flutie, not a Snyder. Well, maybe I'll make a t-shirt, wear it to HellmouthCon next year.
Yeah.
I say all the time, I've lived a Forrest Gump life. I have found myself in the right place at the right time for some pretty amazing things. And that includes this. That includes being there at HellmouthCon and meeting you all and getting to go to San Diego Comic-Con at the last minute. Like, I really, probably about 2 hours before you sent me an email asking if I was going is when I was figuring out about going myself. So
wow, that's so funny.
Yeah, just serendipitous in a lot of ways. I feel lucky. I've lived a pretty charmed life, and podcasting is one of those things that has become a hobby along with all the other things. And I get to hang out with my best friend, you know, every other week.
Yeah,
it's one way to force us to keep in touch.
You know what it is? It's especially at this age, it's hard to socialize and go out. It's really hard to go out. And this is how I have my social life now. It's just like, hey, let's talk about stuff. Let's just have a curated discussion about the things we like.
Exactly. Even if nobody listens or we never make any money off this, at least, you know, we had great conversations every couple of weeks.
That's how I do anything. It's just like, I do this for me. And like, I like when I craft the shows, like, and I sit there and do all this, I just do it to like, this is what I'd like to hear. Like, this is what I'd like to hear. So I just do. That's how I think about everything I do. It's just like, this is for me. If anybody else enjoys this, awesome.
Exactly.
And that's the authenticness of like the podcast, right? It's not formulaic. It's not, there's no marketing behind the decisions and stuff. It's for us.
Yeah.
And that's what people like about it, I think.
I think that's what people are responding to. Because it's like, especially with film and TV, we're so savvy as audience members, and we see the artifice now, and we see like how manufactured everything is. And that's why it's gotten so as big as it has, because people like, it's refreshing. It really is. Like, when I watch like something, like when you watch like a bunch of like junket interviews, you know, and like everybody has to be very perfect in what they say, and just it's this and this, and it's just like, but I'd rather sit there and listen to them. Like, I'll watch like Hot Ones, and that's when you really,
which is way better than anything. Yes,
that guy figured out an amazing. It's so like such a crazy idea, but it works every time. Did you watch the Hugh Jackman one and Ryan Reynolds one?
It keeps popping up for me, but I haven't watched it yet. Did you watch it?
It's really funny.
It's really good.
Oh,
I think Maya Rudolph is my favorite one, but that one was really good too.
Yeah.
Maya Rudolph just getting wasted, chugging not even a pint. She's just chugging from a pitcher of beer because the wings are so hot, and she just gets smashed. It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good. You wouldn't see Maya Rudolph like that in any other format, any other interview, any other anything. Podcasts won't have beer bad episodes because we're not going to be forced to have to do some content like the WB was forcing Joss to write something about alcohol's bad for kids. So
I can't wait till we get to that one. There's episodes I can't wait to get to, because my favorite episode of the show ever is The Body. I cannot wait to.
Thank you. My favorite episode is also The Body, because it's so impactful for a million reasons. I dropped that at HellmouthCon, and everybody at the table thought I was a monster.
It's brutal. It's a brutal episode, but the filmmaking is so good. The sound edit, everything, like where I'm like thinking of things that I never think about with the show. It's like the sound editing and the sound design is unbelievable in this.
Yeah.
Like there's so many, the texture of it all is just so incredible, and how it just captures that minutia of, have you ever been in a room with a dead body? It feels like that.
Yes, it does. It's silent, and it's creepy
Really
and
your brain shuts off anything that's extraneous noise.
You
yes.
don't know
Really
what to do.
wild.
Yeah.
On a
Happier note.
no, on a similar note, what the Body and Hush do, if you are not a fan of the show, there are not two better episodes that in a very small amount of time tell you who each character is, why they're reacting the way they're reacting, and it's powerful and impactful. The Hush does it more comedically with them and Giles doing the projector slide, not slides, the
overhead projector.
The overhead projector, thank you. And
Transparencies.
then, right. And then in the Body, it's how each character reacts to Joyce's death and interacts with each other the first time they see each other. Perfection.
It was how I got Chris into the show, like my co-host on the show. He was like resistant. He's like, it's a lot of episodes. Same thing. It's like, especially when the show's over, it's like, it's a lot.
Yeah.
I said, okay. And I went to what I felt was a nuclear option because I said the filmmaking, so I know what he'll respond to in terms of filmmaking stuff. And he's like, oh my God, it's like that. It's like, it can be. It's just like, that's what's amazing about it. Like, that's what it could do that. And it could go and do a lot of, it could be very experimental, like at times, which is like, I love when the show pulls those kind of weird episodes. I like the Fly episode in Breaking Bad. I know a lot of people hate it. I get it, but it's just like I like that. I love the dream episode.
The Craft.
If I had to pick a favorite episode, and I always forget the name of it, it's the episode where Jenny Calendar is killed, and you get Angelus's voiceovers because of some of those same reasons, right? We don't hear the phone call. I always forget what it's called. I'm bad with this is where I lose at trivia because I know it's the episode where this happens and it leads to this, and what happened before was this. You don't hear the phone call that Giles is making to Buffy to tell her that Angelus has killed Jenny Calendar. You see it from Angelus's point of view, smirking and watching her reaction and relishing in that. Like, it is so good. It is so good. And you see Willow's reaction from that window, right? Like, it just, that whole episode is gut wrenching. And Giles comes home and thinks he's about to be romantic with Jenny Calendar. He goes upstairs to find her body. Like, there's just so much in this episode that is so good. That's, if I had to pick a favorite, that'd be my favorite episode.
All of season 2 is like that, where it breaks a lot of like unsaid rules and like dramatic storytelling. It's like, okay, you could have a character go bad, but not so bad that it's like they do something unforgivable that it'd be hard to like reconcile that person. Like you can't go back to the status quo then, like, you know,
right.
And the show does it and somehow still manages to go back to it. It just takes this incredibly long, detailed way to get there. It's like, how could you do like like I never would have expected he would kill Jenny Calendar because he's never going to do something unforgivable. They're going to bring him back before he does something too bad.
Right. You're waiting for that. And not only does that, they kidnap Giles and torture him. Like, they go all the way. He
brings the heart to Drusilla.
He brings the heart in the box to Drusilla.
So it's like, okay, no, this is like, he's gone. Like, that's it. But they still bring it back. And I love Amends, where he finally deals with the weight of that, all of that, when they finally deal with it, because they kind of delayed a little bit when he's getting back to Earth. But like that episode, I love Amends. And they introduced the first in that episode too, which is crazy. When I didn't recognize it the first time I watched it, but like the second, I was like, oh my God, they bring it up that early?
Yes. When season 7 was happening, like, this was really familiar. We went back to our VHS tapes and found it and went, oh, again, Joss knew where he was going.
Yeah, that's crazy to bring that up so early.
Frank, thanks for being on our show.
Thank you so much.
We could probably talk Buffy forever. And
yes, we can.
so thankful to have met you and Juliet and Chris, and looking forward to much more with Slaying It and seeing you somewhere around the nerdy spheres, especially or definitely at HellmouthCon.
Yes, absolutely. At the very least. Well, you're going to probably be on the show, so I'll see you then probably.
Anytime. Frank, we have our weekly bit that we do, and we invite you to join in with us and tell us what's the nerdiest thing you did this week.
Well, it's funny. When we first started emailing, I believe I was putting an IPS screen in my Game Boy Advance.
Yes.
Okay, now I've moved on to my PSP.
Okay.
So this is how insane I get. My thing is when I'm working and I'm doing a lot, what I like to do to unwind is mod consoles. Just
That's
do
incredible.
stuff. Yeah, I'm really weird. Like it's just it relaxes me. I don't know why. And I solder thing. I solder now. It's like I'm a person that solders, which I never
That's
thought
amazing.
I'd be. What this is how. But I get really. And here's the thing: do I play these consoles? Not really. It's just the point. I want it to be better. Like it's like I have a PSP and it's like I just sit there and fiddle with it and do things. Like what can I do to this? I'm like
It's more fun to take it apart than it is to actually play the games.
Yeah. But
oh, cool.
What I was doing this week, it was actually yesterday, was I wanted to boost performance. So I was going on forums trying to figure out what I could do to like boost the performance. So apparently I formatted my SD card that goes into the memory duo stick.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to reference the games quicker, I formatted in FAT32, but 32 kilobyte clusters, which I found out through like reading for hours and hours that if you actually use if you re-encode it at 64-bit clusters, it'll actually boost performance, as we all know.
That's common knowledge. Yes. I can't believe you went to the internet for that.
Luckily. So luckily that did work, and it is 10% faster.
Wow.
That is deep dive of nerdiness, Frank. I am applause.
Yeah, that's another weird thing that's happened in the last few years. I just because I don't really have time to play games, but I do have time to sit down and like rip apart a console.
Nice.
When you're ready to play it, it's going to go faster.
I do love when I happen upon those videos where people like are restoring old consoles and they like take it apart and it's just covered with gunk and dust and the close-ups and like the ASMR of them like scraping things away and blowing air. And
Odd Tinkering is one of those channels. I love that guy. I watch him.
There you go. Yeah.
I could watch that. I watch a lot of content, but when the person speaks, I shut it off. It's like no. Let your work speak for you.
I love it. I love it.
Wonderful. That is wonderful. And Rob, how about you?
I'll go next. So I'm Frank. I'm a big Dungeons and Dragons nerd. I run a ton of Dungeons and Dragons campaigns and stuff, and we have one that's going right now where it's like a jungle adventure, and a big part of a lot of like big spanning campaigns is travel, and this is of course all thanks to J.R.R. Tolkien, because all these hobbits do is just walk and walk and walk. But in this adventure, they're walking and walking and walking through the jungle, and so I'm very proud of myself. I created a one pager for jungle travel. DM. Oh yeah, no, I run these games for sure. And so I've made this one pager that's got it's got the travel rules of like how far you could travel in a day. It's got the random table where you roll for what the weather is like and the different hot tropical weather and the effects that it has. It's got the table for when you have to forage food and for survival and all this stuff. And then there's a grid with every day and like drop downs, so as we go through we can keep the record, like a little feel. I'm very proud of this silly spreadsheet that I've made.
I could never DM. It's just like there's so much pressure on me, because it's just like I would feel like it would always feel like because you're curating the experience for everybody, and I just want to relax. And like really, Dungeons and Dragons, people always say it's like the nerdiest thing. It really is. It's just like you and your friends sit around, drink beer, and laugh like maniacs. It's like there's nothing really that nerdy about it.
That's why I'm the DM. I want to provide that experience for everyone. Everyone always has a good time. The conversations are always great. The laughable moments, like that's what I want to provide. That's my I say like that's my love language is I make Dungeons and Dragons adventures for my friends to have fun and memories with.
Rob or his son Andrew have been the DMs of every game I've ever played.
Oh, that's great.
In fact, we had a 3-year-long campaign with a group of people that started in the pandemic, and when we couldn't get together and play, our last year episode about nerd travels over the summer was about how we met in Vegas for the finale of that game after 3 years of playing it online. So Rob is pretty pro, and in another life, we own a store in which he does these campaigns / comic book store somewhere in another life, in another plane that exists.
I really I wish I had the time to like sit down and do a new campaign right now, because I love having a fun campaign in that game. It's been a long time. It's been a long time for me.
Perfect.
All right, Analese, what's the nerdiest thing you did this week?
Nerdiest thing I did this week is attached to Comic Con, which at San Diego Comic Con went for the first time. I I planned late, still was able to get inside for a day and then all the outside things a day. And while I was there inside, I got to hang out with Chris and Frank and Juliet for a little bit. They're all very lovely. And the folks with fandom charities, I walked around as much as I could. That one day I was able to get inside. I found the Image booth, big booth, because Image Comics, it makes one of my favorite comic series, which is Chew, which Rob, you found for me. And so I said, hey, I love Chew. Do you have anything like it? So the guy was talking to me. I ended up finding out that they have rebooted the Creepshow series. And I was stoked. It's all new. It's with the Creep. It's new horror stories. They have 2 volumes out right now. I bought them. So the nerdiest thing I did this week was just devour them like I was 13 years old and reading Creepshow for the first time. The tone is great. It's right up there with exactly how I've known Creepshow to be. And so I blazed through those this week. They are so good. And
I love the
I can't
old
wait for
Crypt
more.
of Terror and Tales in the Crypt, like those. When they started reprinting those in the 90s, I was all over that.
Yes. Same. And so
did you watch Tales from the Crypt when it was on?
Of course, yes. That was mandatory watching. So what I'm really glad is in the reboot, sometimes it doesn't make it to modern times and keep that same tone, but the Image has done a really good job with the writers and creators and artists. It looks the same. It looks like it's right out of the 80s. I mean, they did a really good job. So nerdiest thing I did with this week was crush some comics, which I don't always have time to do. So I'm glad that I was able to do it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Very cool.
And we're there, Frank.
And we're there, Frank. We can't thank you enough for coming on, and we're obviously excited about Slaying It, and we want to point all of our listeners over there. I'm sure it's Slaying It on your podcatcher, but then there's also a YouTube, something that you want everybody to check out.
Yeah, we have Slaying It podcast on YouTube, and
both Slaying It.
Yeah, both Slaying It.
Perfect.
And yeah, we're still ramping up. We've just releasing episode 3 this Tuesday as of this recording, and yeah, it's just been a lot of fun. I'm so excited to hear where we're going with it, because we got a lot. The stuff we have in the can, like episode 4, I'm really proud of, just so you know. When it comes out, I'm really proud of episode 4. So I'm really excited to do that. I can't wait to get to season 2, be quite honest with you, because that's when we start talking about the phenomenon of Buffy. That's what I'm really excited about. And all the live shows and stuff. That's it's just been a crazy whirlwind, and I'm very blessed to be on it. I don't know how I got involved in this, but I don't know how this happened, but I'm just going with it. I'm very happy. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Nerd Best Friends. We hope you had as much fun listening as we did making it. Next time, get ready to rev your engines as we dive into the top 5 most iconic cars in pop culture. From the Batmobile to the DeLorean, we're breaking down the rides that fueled our geeky dreams. Until then, stay nerdy. Stay in the loop with Nerd Best Friends by hitting that subscribe or follow button on your device. We absolutely love our fans, especially those who spread the word and drop us those sweet 5-star ratings. Connect with us on social media at Nerd Best Friends, or send us a message at podcast@nerdbestfriends.com. Let's grow our nerdy family and keep the geeky fun going strong.
Crisscross.
I
got him.
Crisscross will make you jump.
I have a toy that is my favorite thing I own because of how, and you're of the age, I think this will make sense. Back in the 70s, Mattel put out a Joey Stivic doll. So Joey Stivic being the Archie Bunker's grandson doll for little girls. And it's anatomically correct, because if you watch, they make sure you know that. They explain, listen, this doll is packing, just so you know. It's just okay, that's on all the advertising. It's laid on the box, and I own one. Because why would something like this exist ever? Little girls really love the old racist
anatomically correct
the old racist guy that their parents
they like the
watched.
old racist guy. If somehow we got to get those people, you got to give them what they want. The market demands it, and I have one. And the only reason I have one because it just doesn't make sense that it exists. Why did anybody thought?
What an artifact. I think a lot of stuff like that is people will invent things and they'll make something and they go to try to market it and they say like, well, it doesn't have a franchise attached. It doesn't have a something like what sticker or like what hat on a hat can we put on this?
The Archie Bunker license.
And that's a wild take. That's absolutely like not, Cabbage Patch Dolls, not this or that. Like, Archie Bunker's grandson.
Yeah, it's okay. I can't say for certain, but I don't think that's the audience that would want, the audience that was watching All in the Family. But we're from the 80s where they made children's shows out of the most inappropriate stuff. Like
we were reminiscing the other day that all of a sudden RoboCop became like a cartoon.
RoboCop, which is fundamentally incorrect.
Mm-hmm. Not for children.
I have Starship Trooper action figures, which is another one. Any Paul Verhoeven film should not be marketed to kids.
Who's sitting there 8-year-old down to watch Starship
Hey
Troopers?
Kids, here's your Basic Instinct Ice Pick replica. It's like, why would you give that to a child?
That was a lot of shows, not just cartoons, but a lot of shows in the 80s. Go back and watch Elf now. Elf was like, he was funny and cute, but then he said stuff that was really not appropriate for kids. Right. And Teen Wolf was one of those ones I went back to in my 20s and watched it again and went, oh my God, why did my parents let me watch this?